I've always had a fascination with hospitals. There's something about the sterile corridors, the hum of machines, and the sense of life and death hanging in the balance. But my first night shift at St. Mary's was something I'll never forget. The hospital was an old building, its walls steeped in history and whispers. As a new intern, I was both excited and nervous. The night shift was quiet, the halls dimly lit, casting long shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Around midnight, I received a call from the nurse's station to check on a patient in room 616. The nurse, an older woman with tired eyes, handed me the chart without a word. Her silence was unsettling. "Is there something I should know?" I asked, trying to sound confident. She hesitated, then whispered, "Just be careful." I shrugged it off, convincing myself it was just the usual night shift fatigue. As I made my way to room 616, the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, an occasional buzz breaking the silence. Room 616 was at the end of a long corridor, the door slightly ajar. I hesitated, a chill creeping down my spine. Pushing the door open, I stepped inside, the air cold and heavy. The patient was a woman, her face pale and drawn. Her eyes were closed, shallow breaths escaping her lips. I checked her vitals. Everything seemed normal, but the room felt wrong, like it was holding its breath, waiting. Suddenly, her eyes snapped open, wide and terrified. She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength, her voice a raspy whisper. "Don't let him in." I tried to calm her, but she released me, slumping back into unconsciousness. My heart raced as I backed away, the shadows in the room seeming to grow darker, denser. I hurried back to the nurse's station, the halls eerily silent. The nurse was gone, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the unsettling feeling that something was very wrong. I decided to check the hospital records, curious about the patient in 616. The computer screen glowed in the dim light, casting an eerie hue. As I typed in her details, the screen flickered, showing a garbled mess of text before settling on her file. The notes were sparse, but one thing stood out: a reference to a previous patient in the same room who had died under mysterious circumstances. A chill ran through me. I needed answers. I headed to the archives, a dusty room filled with old files and forgotten stories. As I searched, the lights flickered again, casting the room in intermittent darkness. My fingers brushed against a file labeled Incident Report, Room 616. Opening it, I found a series of reports about strange occurrences, patients complaining of whispers, shadows moving on their own, and a figure that appeared at night. The descriptions were eerily similar to what I'd experienced. The shadows seemed to deepen around me, the air growing colder. I felt a presence, something watching, waiting. Panic surged, and I fled the archives, the file clutched to my chest. Back in the ward, I found the nurse. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear. "You saw him, didn't you?" she asked, her voice trembling. I nodded, unable to speak. She led me to a quiet corner, her voice a hushed whisper. "They say he's a spirit, trapped in the hospital. He comes for those who are vulnerable, those who can see him." "Why hasn't anyone done anything?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "They've tried, but he always returns." Determined to find a solution, I returned to room 616. The patient lay still, the room cold and oppressive. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting for something, anything to happen. Minutes felt like hours, and just when I thought nothing would, the shadows shifted. A figure emerged, dark and indistinct, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Fear rooted me to the spot as it moved closer, a chilling whisper echoing in the room. "You can't save them." Desperation took over, and I grabbed the cross from around my neck, holding it out like a shield. The figure recoiled, the shadows retreating with it. In that moment, I understood. Faith, belief, whatever it was, it pushed him back. The room brightened, the oppressive air lifting. The patient stirred, her breathing easing as if released from a heavy weight. I backed out of the room, heart still racing but with a sense of victory. Back at the nurse's station, the nurse met my eyes, a silent understanding passing between us. We didn't speak of it, but there was a shared resolve. We would protect our patients, whatever it took. As dawn broke, painting the hospital in soft light, I felt a sense of hope. The shadows might return, but I knew now how to fight them. And as I walked the halls, the whispers faded, leaving only the hum of a waking hospital and the promise of a new day.